Okay, so I think let me ask Marvin to start us off with a word of prayer so that we can begin immediately and save on time. Marvin, if you can hear me, please start us off with a word of prayer.
Okay, so let us believe as I pray. Dear Lord, we thank you at this particular moment, Father, giving us this chance to meet, Father, in this virtual meeting, and we pray, Father, that whatever we discuss, you are going to be in our midst, Father, and it is going to impact us, Father, in a positive way. For it's in Christ's name I do pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So thank you so much once again. Now, as I introduce the topic, I would like to say that as I say that I am a firm believer in the youth, and I believe that none of us is a mistake. None of us is an accident. We are special beings. We were born with a higher purpose that God gave us. That each and every one of us has that unique purpose, and we have the potential within us. We have everything that we need so that we fulfill our destiny. And this evening, as I said, we will be looking at questions that are very fundamental in life. And I say that this session is an attempt to try and tackle these questions. So one of the questions is, and as we go through the session, we'll be asking ourselves, and our speaker will help us to understand this even more. First, let me give us our topic. Our topic this evening, as it was displayed on the poster, is the journey to purpose and self-discovery. The journey to purpose and self-discovery. And we want to know, the first thing we would want to know is, who am I? Who am I? So this is a question of identity. What is our true identity? And then the second question that we'll be looking at is, where do I come from? This is a question of our source. What is our source? The third question that we'll be looking at, and it's also forming that will be forming a huge chunk of this discussion this evening, is, why am I here? And this is a question of purpose. As youth, we want to understand, why were we born? Were we just born to, grow up, pay bills, and die? Or were we born to do something great, to, make an impact in our generation? So those are some of the things that we will be looking at this evening. The other thing that we'll be looking at is, where am I going? Where am I going? And this is a question of vision. Where am I going? We will want to know, why is having a vision important in life? As youths, we'll be asking ourselves, as a youth, you'll be asking yourself personally, do you have a vision for your life? And why is it important that you have a vision in life? The other thing is, the other question, the fifth and the last question that we will be looking at is, what can I do? And this is based on our potential as youths, so that it will be a tragedy if our time here on earth comes to a stop before we even exploit that potential that is within us. So as we go on with this session, I would want us to reflect on these questions, and our speaker will be helping us to understand them even more. So at this point, I want to introduce our speaker, and he is one very special friend to me. I have known him for close to 4 years now. We joined high school. Okay, he was a class ahead of me. So he has been a friend to me and a mentor. I remember when I was in high school, he's really one of those people who really inspired me to go for academic excellence. And he joined med school before I joined med school. And when I was doing my Form 4, I used to talk to him, and I was so excited about medicine, and he guided me through, and I thank God I found my way into medical school. So he is, as I've said, he's a medical student at the University of Nairobi. He is in 4th year now, going to 5th year. And then he is also the AMSUN treasurer. AMSUN is the Association for Medical Students at the University of Nairobi. So he is the current treasurer. And then He is also, as I said, a very good friend to me, and also one of my special mentors. So this man that I'm talking about, this friend that I'm talking about, and our speaker for this evening is Allan Were. Karibu sana daktari.
Well, good evening. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Good evening, Doc. We can hear you.
Oh, nice.
You can take the floor.
All right. I have a very bushy face, but I just allow me have my video on for a short while. Thank you. Welcome, Benjamin Lancaster. Welcome, my member. I have seen Sidika, Josea, Joseph Kamau, Kevin Muthini, Martin Ombaga, wow, Marvin Waeme, Kisali, Carlos, and Timothy Match. Welcome all to this meeting tonight. I will take the least time possible that I can so that we can engage in a discourse that I think is really pertinent for a discussion we may need to have in our current time. Once again, my name is Allan Were. Allan is a friend of man and a servant of God. I think that's most important for the moment today. But thank you as well, Joel, for the brief introduction. I knew Joel in 2015. Yes. 2015 should be. And the date of going to fifth year is yet to be confirmed. But yeah, we are doing well. We are surviving in medical school and trying our best to be the future of what this country probably needs for the moment. I was given this platform for us to have a discussion, and I would like to make it a little bit open. And the discussion we have is so much philosophical. And for the love of philosophy, I wouldn't want to burden us a little bit much with what we would want to go through. But from what actually, so if you saw the poster, the topic was the journey to purpose and self-discovery. The journey to purpose and self-discovery. Now, to be honest, this is, I'm not in any fit qualified to address this topic because I have to say that I haven't qualified myself to discover my purpose and attain self-discovery state as well. But nonetheless, I think we can all together engage in a discussion that can help us narrow down to a conversation that can help us lead to that direction. And allow me just to confirm, Joel, lastly, that we have our high school members in this meeting because I have recognized a few people from in campus already. Let me confirm if we also have members in high school or other colleges that are amongst us.
Yes, sure. So, okay, this webinar was really targeting the youths in general, and it was open to both them that are in high school and them that are in campus. So, for instance, I can see Sam is in high school. I can see he's there, he's really paying attention. I can see Dan. And then we also have first years who have just joined campus, so they are also on board. And also we have, second years, third years, lots of fourth years around. I mean, third years going to fourth year. Yes.
All right, I think that's quite elaborate. I needed to understand my audience, and I will do this very briefly. Currently, as we speak, I'm in KNH. I think I was talking to Joel. My sister was taken into theater, and so I had to be around to guide her around here and also to help out in a few other cases in the hospital. Nonetheless, I will have a very brief presentation, and then afterwards we can have time to discuss and have probably time for all of us to consider to try to understand the topic of discussion today. I would like to begin with a story. Yes, I love stories. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, this is a mythological story, so do not take it serious. Now, the first day, God is said to have created. Sorry. Just a minute. I'm getting something in a while. All right, I'm back. So in the story that I had planned to share with us, the story goes on to say that, so I was just setting up a place I can sit without any interruptions. On the first day, God created the cow, and God allotted to the cow 40 years of living. And after creating the cow, he allotted, I had already said he allotted the cow 40 years of living. But the cow complained and said, "Oh God, why would you give me 40 years of living? I just need uh, I just need a little bit, half of that year, so that I can work for man." Because cows are generally meant to serve man. So if it's a bull, it would be moving around, serving man. And if it's a cow, it would be around milking and doing other sort of things in the shamba. So the cow requests God to reduce his years by half. And so God grants the cow 20 years of life. And the second batch that was created by God is said to be the monkey. Yes, the monkey. So when God creates the monkey, God gives the monkey 20 years of life. But then the monkey wonders and says, "God, you have given me 20 years to run around, and jump from tree to tree for 20 years. That's a long time. I'm asking you to kindly have it or reduce it." And so God gives the monkey 10 years of living, like as a lifespan. And then on the third day, the Lord creates a dog, and he gives the dog as well 20 years of life. And now the dog in awe is wondering and just complaining to God and saying, "You have given me 20 years of barking around and making noise and working for man. God, why can't you just do it half?" And so the Lord halves the years of the dog from 20 years to 10 years. So the dog's lifespan is 10 years. Then on the fourth day, God creates man, and he gives man a lifespan of 20 years only. Then man begins to complain and says, "God, why have you given me only 20 years of enjoy?" Man is meant to enjoy, live, you enjoy, and then you die. So he's like, "For 20 years, and that's all, like I would be at the maturity of my age. Why are you doing this, God?" And so he requests God to add him more years. And so he gets into a bargain with God and says, "Get the 20 years you subtracted from the cow and add them to me, and add me also the 10 years you took from the monkey and add it to me, and take the 10 years you took from the dog and add it to me." So the Lord grants man his requests as he'd done to other animals. And so he gives man his request, such that in the first 20 years of our lives, we are meant to grow, to be dependent on our parents and everyone else around us. And then after 20 years, the next 20 years that the Lord subtracted from the cow, we spend it working and tilling the land and doing all that we can to raise income for our families and for our loved ones. Especially as a man, I'm actually glad that it's the majority of this population actually men. And that totals it to 40 years. And then God takes the 10 years that he'd given to the monkey to add it to man. So that is a total of 50 years already, such that man spends his ages between age 40 and 50 doing monkey business, playing tricks with their grandchildren. Between 40 and 50, actually, most parents have their grandchildren already born. And what, as a man or as a grandmother, you do at that time is play monkey business and tricks with your grandchildren, move around with them. And then the last 10 years that the Lord took from the dog, the barking years, they're called the barking years. Man spends between age 50 and 60 walking around, barking and taking orders right, forth, and left, and granting about every single decision. And that's the point of regret as well. You regret of the things you didn't do and the things you were able to do. Anyway, that was just a highlight to begin our discussion this night. And probably in 15 minutes time, we will be done. I would love to take us right away into a discussion of a discovery of purpose, and also a discovery of our own self. And for sure, this is one really nice thing that if we interrogate ourselves amidst and just to know what it entails, then it would be a clear landmark that would lead us in a direction that we have purpose to take. And someone says that, you know, you would rather spend 5 years if you actually given 6 years to cut down a big tree. Someone argues that he would spend 5 years sharpening the axe and then the last year to cut down the tree. But now, you know, most of us, we spend 5 years cutting down the tree and probably 1 year sharpening the axe, such that you spend more energy than you should have in doing a simple task or a complicated task that would be made simpler. And in the context of the Bible, you know, there's a verse in the Bible that says, 6 days in a week thou shalt work, but on the seventh day you shall rest. Really have a philosophy that says many students, instead, or many people, instead of working for 6 days and resting on the seventh day, many people have reversed that to rest for 6 days and then we work on the seventh day. And that has impacted quite a lot in our progress and in the number of activities we're able to achieve at the very end of a day. Now, I would like to take us directly to the principles of discovery to purpose and self-discovery. You know, in the journey to purpose and self-discovery, of a few things that I have found important, or markers that I have found that they can be clear guide maps that can facilitate our mind process as we probably try to find a parachute to land on this safe journey that we have set ourselves into. And so probably someone would be asking, what is self-discovery, you know? And in a definition that is probably common to us, self-discovery is a lifelong journey of exploration through our inner self, trying to discover who we are, our potential, you know, our purpose in life, and what core principles are guiding us to take different paths along the way. Okay. And the writer highlights that the journey starts with self-awareness, then it explores personal interests as well as hopes and dreams for the future. Then it eventually leads to self-knowledge, which will enable us to guide ourselves towards situations and experiences in which we will thrive. And I do not want to make my session boring with a lot of theoretical aspects, but just to grant us a panorama of what I'm trying to talk about. You know, he gives three principal pillars that are a discovery of, or a discussion point that can lead us to know what really self-discovery is in the life today we live. And he says it starts with self-awareness. That is number one. And we will see what it takes to be self-aware. Then number two, it also explores personal interests, like what interests you, as well as hopes and dreams for the future. So if you actually are careful, the three things I have talked about, number one, there is an inner self, okay? What constitutes our understanding or our inmost being. And number two, in the exploration of personal interests, is what we lay our hands daily. What interests you or what propels you? Now, you understand that self-awareness begins from a thought process. You have to conceive something in your mind, and that would eventually lead to know what interests you. I believe we are together. So like, let me say, I'm seated right here and I'm thinking of what I'm going to have for supper. For me to go and actually order pizza for supper, for instance, it means I should have thought about this. And it needs me to be aware of the things that my body can take in and what my body cannot take in. In the hospital setup, for instance, if you suffer from H. pylori or if you have ulcers, then as a medication of pain or a pain reliever, you cannot use an NSAID. An NSAID is an nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Or to put it simpler, you can't use drugs such as diclofenac, right? You would go for alkaline drugs that are not acidic and cannot stimulate any acidic reaction in your stomach. So that is a self-awareness. And then personal interest, from whatever things you know, or your thought guides you to what you want or what you can engage yourself daily in, it makes you lay a finger on probably what would make sense to you most. And the third bit is the future. So there's an inner being, there's a presence being, like a present participle, like you're right here. What interests you? And the last bit is the future, hopes and dreams for the future. Now, this is a chronological event that guides you from one step to another. You cannot say that you want to be a pilot, for instance, and you spend most of your time in the pitch, like in the football pitch. You know, it would be more accurate for you to say that I want to be a footballer. I do not know if that resonates us well with us. So if you have conceived it in your mind that you want to be a footballer, okay, then the second option would be to convert this thought into an active personal interest, and we will see you in the field playing football. And then, lastly, the other procedure would for you to envision that, you know, I will practice football for this, I will train for this year or for 2 years. Ultimately, my purpose is to play for Southampton. Like, you know, some of us here are uh, are fans of Southampton, Newcastle. I actually saw in the news yesterday, Newcastle is one of the richest teams currently in the European League. Initially, it's been Manchester United, but some crazy person bought Newcastle, I think, yesterday by some 350 million euros. That's pretty a lot of money. And for me, why this is something that we have to lay focus on is because lately we have had cases of people engaging themselves in very hyenas or some maladies that approach us that we hadn't anticipated for in this generation. And that includes for the male children today, we have suffered a lot of alienation, or people have neglected a fight for the boy child gender. And so as a consequence, most of the things that uh, we have enjoyed as as a species are coming to an extinction. And I'm not saying it's wrong for the other gender to do this, but it seems there has been a lag over the past few years on what we do, or in what interests us, or in what we think, and in what would guide us to a safer future. I will give you a typical example. Joel mentioned that I serve as the treasurer for medical school here at the University of Nairobi. Yeah, sure. And we organized a dinner that was to see off the graduating class, and that dinner happened last week on Friday. Now, do you know that the best student in all the units, literally all the units in sixth year, from fifth year to sixth year, usually award the best students from fifth year to sixth year. Do you know that they were all ladies? Okay, all these people were ladies. And then the best overall student, she was also a lady. That's amazing. That's nice, right? And in our association where I'm privileged to serve as a treasurer, our chair and our vice chair are all ladies. Okay, I'm not saying that we are weak, but for some reason there has been a lag somewhere. And I think it's quite important for we as a growing population, like as the youth of this nation currently, to figure out ways in which we are going to succor, or we are going to lift our own status in the society as men. Okay. And this is a call to manliness. There's a book I would really love us to go read after this. It's called um, it's called uh, Being Manly Men. Yeah, it's called that's the title. I think I can share it with Joel after this meeting, and then he can find a way it will get up to you. It's a very small book, but it's really pertinent for the men of this generation to acquaint themselves with every single thing that the writer talks about there in that book. You know, someone says that a man travels the world over in search of what he needs and returns home to find it. Okay. Have you ever looked for something until you have, let me give this typical example. I think when I used to be when I used to be in high school, when I used to take notes, I would sometimes keep a pen on my nose, not on my nose, sorry, on at the very edge of my ears, of my earlobe. So I would do other things, and then I would literally start searching for the pen everywhere. You know, I would look. I'm someone who rarely buys pens. You know, you go and ask Joel for a pen, and then you fail to return it. But that's not something we should all do. So I would then walk around, look into my locker, look into my exercise books. I would miss this pen because I have already forgotten where I had placed it, only for my next desk mate to tell me that, Alan, your pen is right at the tip of your earlobe. Pick it. And so this man says that we can travel over the world in search of what we need, but we will ultimately return home to find it right there. He's called George Moo, yeah, if I'm not wrong. And for me, in my understanding, the purpose of life is literally to discover our gifts, and the meaning of life is to give it away. There's no better life you can ever live than giving away your life. And giving away your life, it's not in the context of what Jesus did, but in the context of living a service-oriented life where you actually live for other people. And probably, let me ask you, you've heard about people like, let me give one of the recent millionaires in the country whom we lost. He's called Kirubi, Chris Kirubi. Chris Kirubi happened to be in my former high school. You know, when he was approached at some point to come in and help the Old Boys Association, which I also participate actively in, he actually declined. He said he doesn't want anything to be associated with that school, in the extent of how much wealth he had garnered over that time. And, you know, as in right now, that gentleman is dead, but I didn't see anyone shed a tear like probably you yourself, knowing that Chris Kirubi was one of the richest men in the country. Have you felt like you've shed a tear for that man? Or let me give an instance of the total man. You know, men who were buried in golden caskets. You know, literally, if you don't live for anything or for something, then you end up, once you have died, you haven't left any legacy that people can look back and say, honestly, this man did something, you know. And for me, I actually believe that in our own spaces, we do not have to have the wealth exact that these people have mentioned already had. But that is just to mention that money is not a solution to everything. In every single state or in every single thing you do you always remember to ensure that you have impacted a life in a manner that tomorrow someone would sit back and look back and say that indeed Joel did something, all right? This gentleman called Eliot, T.S. Eliot, is a very famous writer. He says that we must not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we began and to know the place for the first time, okay? And you know, it's usually not news when you hear people say that there are two most important days in someone's life, okay? There are actually two. One is the day you discovered your purpose, or the day you actually discover why you were born. I believe you understand what I say. You know, you could be 30 years old, but you have not oriented yourself to the reason of your existence, okay? So the very day you sit back and startle and say that, oh, my name is, let me use an example of Boniface Nyangweso, okay? Boniface, I do not know how old he is, but the very time Boniface would be old enough to know that, you know, I'm born in this world to do this and this, that very day, he will have come to the realization of why he was made into existence. And do you know, shock on you, if you do not believe in God, I'm really sorry, but allow me use this. The universe has a special place for all of us. Like for each and every single person, God recognizes us as his own individual beings with whom he has bestowed to us a soul and his spirit to guide us. And so probably let me give you a biblical reference to emphasize on this. You know why the devil was unable to attack Job during Job's test in Job chapter 2. You know, he says Job goes before heaven, and if you read the Bible, it says when the devil approaches God in heaven, he says, God actually asks him, where are you from? He says, I'm from walking up and about, and from walking up and down. No, he says, actually the verse states, I'm from walking to and fro and up and down. So to mean, the devil has a linear movement and a vertical movement. A linear movement to mean he has a direction that takes a linear angle, like walking to and fro, okay? Like you can move in a corridor, right, forth, and left. And walking up and down means you are going up and going down. So that's a vertical movement. Now, the reason why the devil submits to this, because, you know, God has given us a fire around each and every one of us that surrounds us all the way to heaven, okay? So the devil has no way to access us in any instance if we are protected by the blood of Jesus. So that's why he has to go to heaven in Job's case, through, because the wall forms a fire that goes right before in the presence of God. So literally in the presence of God, Boniface, you are identified like as an individual, and there's no one else around you. Like whenever you pray, God listens to your prayer like you are a single person making that prayer. Another aspect of our discussion tonight that we were supposed to focus on is where do we come from, or like our source. We've had this is a lot of philosophical thought, but I would like you to think about this in this sense. People have argued about the evolution theory for so long, and I've had this conversation with very senior consultants and doctors around here. But ultimately, the argument that takes in, let me use the Darwinian theory, for instance, or sorry, that would go far a little bit. That would complicate our talk. Let me use the nebula cloud theory. Okay, the nebula. Okay, we have the nebula cloud theory, the Big Bang theory. We also have the Darwinian theory of evolution. Let me use the nebula cloud. It says that there was a mass of, for those who did geography, you will enjoy these little seconds that I will share doing this. That there was a mass of clouds or tiny particles of matter that conjoined together and solidified in a state of motion and randomly gave birth to the universe and to human beings and everything else. But then the question is, what was the source of this particular source of matter that began all this particular, it's in physics they call it Brownian motion of particles. What actually led to the origin or to the discovery of these first particles? And that's why scientists over time have actually declared that as much as they believe in the Darwinian theory, there's a trace that can be, like, let me give an instance, the DNA, which is the core of human life. You know, where was the DNA brought from then? Was it something that happened by chance? Definitely not. It means for me to exist, there must be life without me that can bring me to existence. Okay? Like, for a car to be there, or for a car to be formed, it has to be first preformed in the minds of a human being, and he can figure it out and plan. That's why architects, usually they have to plan for buildings prior, and then the building comes into place. There's no single day you'll actually see a building springing out of nowhere. That's nonsense, right? So for me, actually, I'm a proponent of science a lot, but science has to be backed up with spiritual evidences that can point back to a maker, like an origin. Because within our own selves, life does not exist. That's why we cannot resurrect as someone who has died, no matter how much electrocution we can apply to them, okay? Another question is, why are we here? And I'd already said in my earlier submission that for me, my whole understanding of our own existence is to live as a life springing forth to bless other people. You know, you would ask a river what gives it the joy of flowing up and about and not giving up. It's to supply people with its needs. And, you know, that's why people say lamely that a tree does not produce fruits for its own consumption, but for the consumption of other people. And so if your life is not as modeled in a way that other people are beneficiaries of your own experiences or your own life journey, then you need to ask yourself what's wrong. Another question was, where are we going? And this is actually something so good. We have also touched a little bit about this, though our time is a little bit limited, as I can see. We, in a discussion of the three particulate construction of a human being, there's what is in our mind, there's what interests us, what we actually do currently. Like for me, if knitting is my personal interest, I would literally be engaging my time in that and building it up. And our future is also oriented in that. So our ultimate goal or our ultimate destination is much dependent on your thought process and your current state. And the last question is, what can we do? How much potential do we have? What are our capabilities and what are our limitations? Now, this is actually the flesh of our discussion tonight. And it's very sad that I'd already mentioned that the youth nowadays are entangled in quite a mess of so many things that, in the sense of we think that we're enjoying ourselves, we're actually destroying ourselves. And the earlier we come to an understanding of this, then the better we are. And one of the things that really affects me as an individual is social media. You know, nowadays we spend more time on social media than on any other thing else. And at the end of the day, you can actually say why many people procrastinate is because we have spent a lot of time on social media and on unnecessary things. And the problem with internet or with social media is it's wired our brains to think that if you do not receive 100 likes, like what Alan got in his previous Facebook post, then you probably are not a celebrity or you are lacking in something. And for the ladies, it's even worse because someone would judge their own godly appearances or how they were created based literally on how people react or how people comment on Twitter or on Instagram or on Facebook or on WhatsApp that currently has taken a toll of every single youth today. And so if we must spend time in doing meaningful things, we need to really discipline our time, because our time is actually limited. And nowadays, our lifespan, actually the average lifespan of a Kenyan is 63 to 66 years old. So before then, you realize that the most active years you have in your life is the years of your youth. And let me give a biblical reference of a man whom at a young age had already explored and understood his own purpose. This man was Joseph and David. Do you know how old Joseph was when he was taken into captivity? He was already 17 years old. And by the time Joseph rises to the ranks of being the prime minister of Egypt, he was 30 years old. As in at 17, Joseph had already made a declaration that for me, this is what I will actually choose for my life. All right. And another example is David. Those guys at a very tender age, David, I think, was at 20. That's when things were taking root. And where probably you may be thinking that let me wait until I'm 30 and life will take a good course, or it will take a good. Definitely, for everything, life takes its own course. But if you do not direct your life accordingly, then it will take a very bad course for you. A stream of water would begin to flow. You can have the alternative or the choice to open up a trench for it to follow. Failure to which it will dig its own path. And somehow it may even cut through the middle of your house or the middle of your garden if you hadn't precedented it. So if before everything gets or overwhelms us, we have the privilege as youth in the society today to shape what we would want the future to look like. Okay, we have the opportunity to make what we would want tomorrow to appear like in our situation. And that's why for me, like in the medical fraternity, many people are fearing out in the health policies and in other things that actually determine the benefits that doctors do enjoy in this country. Because many people are afraid, oh, Joel would be like, I'm just a medical student. I want to finish up. I want to do neurosurgery and then get into the profession. And we many a times neglect platforms or sessions that actually would help us build on what we can actually do to make today better for the people who will come after us. And someone says that, discovering who you are today is the first step to being who you will be tomorrow. And that is something that I would like to really emphasize on. As I end, I would like to highlight a few things. Then I will give a final quote and then probably end this. Now, the process of self-discovery and purpose. One, I had mentioned of self-awareness. You need to have an understanding of who you are, your personal characteristics, your tendencies, your emotions, your needs, and your values. As a young person, you have to know your values. Like, you need to know that these are the limits that I can't move, okay? You need to know your needs. Like, if you're given 20,000, for instance, today, we have wants and we have needs. Would you prioritize your wants to your needs? Like, right now, I need my school fees more, but I do not need a vehicle. So if I have money, would I prioritize or if I'm given some money, would I prioritize my needs against my wants? Okay. Your emotions, you need to have a mastery of your emotional status. It's called emotional intelligence. How you would react to different situations. The people whom, if you click them up, they can actually just blast on you and beat you thoroughly. And your tendencies, like, what's your regular day-to-day like activity? Is it something that you can predict and say that at this time of the hour I sleep? And sleep is one of the most important things that is essential in our bodies as human beings. Actually, between 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day is recommended. What are your personal characteristics? In this, I would recommend you to take a personality test. Just get online and look for a personality test. There's some 20 questions that can help you know of what is your temperament. Like, are you a sanguine? Are you a phlegmatic person? Are you melancholic, or are you a choleric? That would help you know how to interact with other people once you have established it. Number 2 is interest awareness. I talked about personal interests, okay? try to find the things that interest you, such that if Alan calls you today, we go out and play golf, and you are engaged in other things, you'd say, no, that's not my interest. Or if someone engages you in vices that are against your values. So once you are aware of yourself, then you discover your interests from the values you actually have. Then the third thing is hopes and dreams. Okay, you need to at least have a list, or if not a list, enjoin it in your mind, the things that you envision your mind to be. Yesterday, let me just mention this as a joke. Yesterday, one of my friends, one of my senior colleagues, he's going to sixth year. He called me, and the first thing he called me, Alan, I have realized that we are poor, my friend. He'd visited Charles Keter's house. Charles Keter is the Minister for Energy at some point. And so he's saying, Charles Keter lives in a homestead where the cows use like literally mattresses as their sleeping places. And the cows have music within their cow sheds. And the cows have some electronic chips that knows the amount or liters of milk that has been milked every single day. And so he was saying, Alan, in your place, you live in a place you do not even have a quality mattress to begin with. But someone here, their cows are living a much more quality life than yourself. So have a vision of like probably what you'd want your future to look like, okay? And begin to work towards it. And then the last thing is career discovery. Finding a career that corresponds to your personality and interests. I have known people whom have come into the profession, in the medical profession, and ultimately worked out because they did it out of compulsion from their parents or from friends or from society. And many people, let me give an instance of Dr. Mercy Korir. She's a well-known journalist. Dr. Mercy Korir, she's a lady who joined medical school. She completed a medical degree, but ended up in the journalism field. Okay, so at some point, once you can actually join med school, you can join engineering school, but then over time you realize that you are more talented in playing football or in athletics. And a very perfect example is our own friend Ferdinand Omanyala. He's a student here at university, but in the yeah, he has a passion in a way that there's a pie chart that I would have loved if we had the opportunity to have a screen on. But it says the first step is of self-discovery. No, it's actually more of a circular thing. It's a chain. One is self-discovery. Once you have discovered your own self and your purpose, it moves to a point called self-development. You begin to improve on your weaknesses and the things you can build on. And in the process of development, you acquire what is called self-mastery. Like, there's someone you would actually call me today, and you are literally aware that, Alan, I cannot find him at this time. You understand? Like, let me use a bad example. Let me use a friend I know here, Martin. Martin can probably have his drinking crew and say, Alan is also one of us. Let me call him. We go out and drink. But Martin knows that Alan is an alcoholic. So that comes as a result of a mastery of self. And you actually know, people know that I cannot call Alan on such kind of a thing. Siwezi pigia Joel kutafuta hongo kwake. Unaona? And then the last thing is self-actualization. When you come to a point that you have understood everything and you are a master of your own self. The very last thing, if you do not have control over your emotions and over your life, then your emotions will take control over you. Think about that and ponder upon it anew. If you do not have control over your life will have control over you. And what lies behind us, what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. What lies within us is much more important than what lies before us and what lies behind us. What we contain inside can build or can break us. And think about these words as we contemplate over this particular topic. It sounds a little bit something really philosophical, but if we find a way of equipping it or incorporating it in our lives, then it can help us prevent all these number of suicides we have today and the number of breakups we have today in relationships, and also a way to master or to manage the crises that we often find ourselves into. Thank you. And if we have any questions, probably we can take them. I have finished 7 minutes before time, so we can have a moment to ask one or two things and be equally involved in this. Thank you. Back to you, Joel.
Thank you so much, Allan. That was so deep. I have got a lot of insights from what you have shared. And, I was just trying to take notes as I listened to you and understanding what you're saying. And some of the things that really stood out for me were, okay, you mentioned something about purpose. You say discovering who you are today or now is the basis for determining that which you will become tomorrow. Then you've also taken us through the process of self-discovery, which I feel it's something that we really need to pay attention to. He mentioned four things that we need to pay attention to. He mentioned about self-awareness. We need to be aware of our needs, our emotions, our values. He also mentioned about our personal interests as one of the pointers to our purpose. He mentioned our hopes and dreams for the future. And lastly, he talked about our career aspirations. So thank you so much, Ayla. That was so insightful, and I believe that with these insights, then we can at least be able to. They will at least put us in a very good position to discover who we are and discover our purpose in life. So at this moment, I would like to welcome any questions. I see we have 5 more minutes to go. So if there are any questions, maybe we can take 2 or 3 questions very quickly. So the floor is now open for questions. If maybe there is something you needed to ask our speaker, we'd really love to hear your question. Anyone, please? Any question? Something that maybe you wanted clarification on? Anyone, please? We still have a few more minutes. So I think silence means that we have then that means that we have understood this topic very well. And once again, thank you so much, Alan, for what you've shared with us this evening. So I also want to thank you, all of you, for finding time to join us this evening. I can see Boniface joined us. Thank you so much, Boniface. Boniface, you have your hand up. You have a question? Boniface Nyangweso, you have a question? We can't hear you. Maybe you can unmute.
Yeah. Actually, it's actually a very good evening. Having to meet you again. Actually, it's been long since we saw each other.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm very privileged to see you guys, and maybe I'd like to maybe get an advice on something. Our speaker talked about the career aspirations, like something like sticking to your career aspirations. So maybe I'd like you to maybe advise me, maybe, because if you advise me, it will actually help someone else. So if you can advise me on how I can make sure that throughout my all campus years, I'm really sticking to that, like I'm really committing to my aspirations. Yeah, it's just that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Boniface. Maybe, Alan, you can share your thoughts on that.
Wait, probably if we have any more questions, so we can handle them all together. But that's quite a question to think about as well. So if there's any more questions, then we can have them all.
Okay, thank you. So any other question, please? If you have a question, just feel free. If you have a question, please. Okay, so silence means that we only have that one question. So thank you, Boniface. Let's have Alan share his thoughts on the same. I see we still have 2 more minutes to go. Then we will wrap up the session.
Hello. All right. Thank you. So probably let me address that. How you'd stick to your aspirations. For me, I actually have learned that there's usually this quote or this expression that says repetition enhances. Um, repetition enhances. Yeah, but the whole thing I'm actually trying to drive home is once you have understood your purpose, or like whatever your life is oriented, or you have a view of what you'd want to do, then the more things you do like on a daily basis, it would pin your life to whatever end goal that you would have projected for it to be. Let me say, for instance, if you have set on a journey today to go to Westlands, if you stay directly on the road, then you'll actually end up in the place. So I would say that for you to stick on your aspirations, then just stick on a lane of whatever things you have already mastered for yourself that works, and then see if that would yield fruits. But again, if there's anything particular we need to address, we can have a chat on a personal basis. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Boniface, for that question. Now, Boniface was my class prefect back then in high school, and it's a privilege having you here on this platform this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I see Tyson is also joined us. Tyson was my CU chairman back then in high school. Thank you so much, Tyson, for joining us. And as I said when we were starting, I really appreciate all of you that finding time out of your busy schedules to join us this evening. I don't take it for granted. I am so much grateful. Thank you so much for making this session a success. To our speaker, Allan, for that which you shared with us this evening. We have been blessed and we have been empowered, and I believe that we are going to run with it, and it will help us to, to maximize on our potential and really fulfill that which God created us to fulfill. We will be impactful in our generation. We are going to be youths of change. So we have come to the end of our session, and at this point, I will allow us to leave. But before we leave, okay, let me just introduce Destiny Motivation. This is a platform that is geared towards inspiring youths. It's geared towards empowering the youths, and you can follow us on Twitter. Okay, currently I'm using my personal Twitter handle, so you can follow me at Joel Masiaga. You can also follow us. We have a website, so you can use the link destinymotivation.wordpress.com. So you'll find us there. So that's where we share most of our content. And then on YouTube, we're also there, Destiny Motivation. So you will find us there. And also this content, we are going to post it there. So in case you would want to have a playback of this session, then feel free. Otherwise, thank you so much. Masachi, I can see you joined us. Masachi, all the way from Florida, USA, Florida. Thank you so much, brother, for finding time to join us. Ubarikiwe sana, sana, sana. So I think we will stop there for this evening. Thank you so much, guys. Tunaweza unmute, tusalimiane, tuki leave meeting. Usileft bila kusema hi, so we can unmute and say hi. Mudhini.
Hi guys.
Yes, hi. Chairman, tusalimie.
Sorry, joined the meeting late. My apologies.
Chairman, thank you